My name is John Passfield, and I'm going to read from my novel John Passfield, Saturday Morning. The title of this reading will be Saturday Morning, Video 17, The Great Books That We Read. So here's the cover, John Passfield, Saturday Morning, a novel by John Passfield. My 21-year-old self and my wife-to-be sitting on our 1960 Austin Healey Sprite in the summer of 1967. Myself at the bottom, John Passfield, the 75-year-old author of this novel. A 21-year-old would-be writer, John Passfield, spends his last few months as a garbage collector on the streets of his hometown, St. Thomas, Ontario, Canada, in the summer of Canada's centennial year, 1967. As he works, he compares the imagery of his own life so far, and of his upcoming marriage and pending career as a high school teacher, to the imagery of the great books that he is reading, all while in pursuit of building the perfect load of garbage. Well, I'm calling this a reading, but I'm actually just going to read from a note. All of these books that I'm going to mention are thought about by the main character in the novel. But rather than read from the novel, I'm just going to talk about these books. The main character of the novel, myself at 21 years old, is wondering what the imagery of the great books that he's reading has to do with the life that he has been leading so far. And after some major changes in his life, the life that he will be leading for the rest of his life. Let's look at the situations as images of some of the books that he's reading, with the question of, what does the imagery of these books have to do with me? Well, me, 21-year-old John Passfield, or you, the reader of the novel. Hamlet by William Shakespeare. At a surface level, the story is about a prince in a remote country in an earlier era who is visited by a ghost with a disturbing request. Well, I'm not a prince, and I haven't had a ghost visit me, so maybe this play isn't about me. But at a deeper level, the story is about a young person who has a life plan all laid out for him, one which seems to be congenial to him, and that a great family or social cataclysm throws a monkey wrench into those plans. Well, social cataclysm, my grandparents and parents lived through 2 world wars in the early 20th century and a major depression. So social cataclysm changed their plans. For myself, personal changes. You know, you get a job or you don't get a job that you'd like to have. That kind of thing, you know. And, death in the family, my parents dying and so on at certain ages. These are personal changes in your plan. So Hamlet is about us. It's about every human being on the earth. Another book, excuse me, I'll clear my throat. L'étranger by Albert Camus. At a surface level, a young Algerian does not cry at his mother's funeral. And when he is put on trial for shooting a man, he is thought by many to be an unfeeling monster. Well, I haven't shot a man. I haven't been put on trial. At a deeper level, though, a person who does not express his feelings openly and then becomes involved in a situation in which he is judged by others raises the question of how we come to know or do not come to know another person. Excuse me again, just clearing my throat, but the fact that we go through life kind of negotiating relationships with people. All people do this throughout their whole lives. So yes, L'étranger by Albert Camus is about me and is about every other person, for sure. Death of a Salesman by Arthur Miller. At a surface level, a young man who's not made a success of himself in his father's eyes comes home to make one more attempt at success. Well, I don't think I was a failure in my father's eyes. Never had a kind of a confrontation over our relative values. But at a deeper level, a young person internalizes the imagery of another person's personal life dream, but comes to wonder at a later age whether that imagery was false imagery in terms of what should have been the dreams which motivated his whole life. Well, that concerns all of us. And I mean, we don't always know if we have the image of a rock star, a movie star, a doctor, a lawyer, and we put all of our energy into that dream, we don't know until a certain point whether that's true imagery. That's what we're going to become and enjoy becoming. or whether it's false imagery. Well, I only wanted to be a doctor because my parents kept telling me I'd be a doctor someday. Or I saw, a doctor on TV and it looked such a glamorous lifestyle. So that's the challenge for all of us. So Death of a Salesman is about all of us. And life is not easy, and we have to negotiate, excuse me, by thinking of the images which attract us and the images which repel us and lead us on down various paths of future lifestyle. Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. At a surface level, it's a story of two people who seem at one time to be perfectly matched as lovers. Excuse me again, I can't get rid of this frog in my throat. Are driven apart by circumstances, the fact which one person accepts and the other cannot. Well, at a deeper level, the question of whether any two people, no matter how well matched they seem to be, can or should turn the information of their shared life experience into the same personal aspiration myth. So, does a relationship to be positive, acceptable, worthy, have to have two people who think exactly alike on everything? Or can there be a percentage of shared and not shared hopes, dreams, aspirations, and so on? So again, negotiating a personal relationship is so common and necessary to everyone on earth. So yes, it is about us, even though it seems to be the story of two very unique people, very different from you and I on the surface. Oedipus the King by Sophocles, another book that the main character, as he's collecting garbage, emptying garbage pails in the back of a truck in the summer of 1967, is thinking about. Oedipus the King by Sophocles. At the surface level is the story of a king in ancient times who kills his father and marries his mother inadvertently, which leads to the destruction of himself and others and the instability of his society. Oh my gosh, an ancient king kills his father, doesn't know who he is, marries his mother, doesn't realize who that is. The whole society comes tumbling down. That can't be about me. But at a deeper level, the story raises a question of what are the elements that determine the paths that we take or are forced to take as we live our lives, and the question of whether it is the events or our response to those events which indicate significance. So, do we live our lives based on what we know is going to happen and we make deliberate choices, or what we don't know? You take a job, there's an awful lot to that job that you don't know about on your first day of work. So sometimes, it's knowledge, and sometimes it's guesswork, and sometimes it's luck, eh? Then the other thing as well is what happens to us, or how we respond to those events. So those are the questions the play poses for us to answer in our own lives. So yes, it is about us. 1984 by George Orwell. On the surface is a story of two people who live in a totalitarian society and who try and fail to live by other values than that which are imposed on their fellow citizens by the government as imaged by Big Brother. Well, I live in Canada, hardly a totalitarian society. Can't be about me, this novel. But at a deeper level, the story illustrates the fact that we humans turn our life experiences into the imagery by which we think. The attempt by the authorities to remove certain behaviors and even certain words from the discourse shows that the leaders of that society understand the working of imagery in societies and in individual minds. So if you take the word rebellion out of the vocabulary, will people even think of rebelling? Disobedience. Suppose there was no such word. Would people think of doing that? So this is 1984, and it's an extreme situation. But it's really dealing with the idea that we think in imagery. We have patterns in our mind, and we can even either follow them or avoid them. But how the mind works is what 1984 is really all about. That's how everybody's mind works, not just people in this dystopian society of the novel, totalitarian I was searching for. The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. On the surface, the story is of a young soldier who falls in love with a rich girl, loses her to a rich suitor, and tries to win her back with extravagant displays of newfound wealth. Well, I was in the militia, but I was hardly a soldier. Falls in love with a rich girl, no. Becomes extremely wealthy and shows off his wealth and so on, well, no, can't be about me. But at a deeper level, the story illustrates that we are motivated by the myths that we create in our minds. We create these myths out of our personal experiences, the experiences of our ancestors, and the urgings of our imaginations. There is a green breast of the new world in all of those who leave the society in which they are born to start a new life in a new place. Just there's a green breast of a new world in every person who is dissatisfied with his or her present circumstances in everyday life. That personal and societal myth building can sometimes be beneficial and sometimes destructive is apparent in the working out of the story of that book. So the myth that you build in your mind based on your reality and your imagination of what you'd like to have your reality be can be harmful or beneficial. Well, think about it. This novel is about us in that sense. We all have a river of thought in our minds. That river is made up of many tributary streams. Our family, our country, our society, the decades, the news events, the social movements, our childhoods, our successes, our failures. All of these elements provide information, life experience information, out of which we choose, our minds choose, significant information, which we believe might act as imagery, as evaluative imagery, as significant imagery, as yardstick or meter stick imagery in exploring the possibility of meaning in our minds. Another contributory stream of information as potential imagery is our imaginations, the imagery of our dreams and nightmares, some of which is insignificant and some of which might be extremely significant. Now, for many people, another great stream of information, of potential imagery of significance, is the imagery that we draw from the great literature of the past and of our own time. All of these contributory image streams flow together in our minds to create one large stream, a thought stream of images, which work together and work at odds, which compare and contrast, which cooperate and compete to produce an image pattern of potential meaning for us to consider. And just as is true of the great literature that we read, the language of exploration and communication of our minds is the language of imagery. And imagery, unlike the language of prose statement, must be interpreted to be of any value. So, the lifelong task of every human being is to interpret the image patterns which that person's mind makes on a moment-to-moment and on a lifetime basis. For some people, by choice, the image patterns of the mind are enriched by the taking in of streams of potentially significant imagery from the reading of the great books of our literary heritage. So that answers the question for me of why we bother to read great books. Okay, well, the novel that I'm suggesting you have a look at is John Passfield, Saturday Morning, a novel by John Passfield. It's found on Amazon. There's information there. My publisher's website is rocksmillspress.com, rocksmillspress.com. More information there. johnpassfield.ca is my website, johnpassfield.ca. Two free books you can access. One is a planning notebook, how I thought of, patterned out and wrote the novel. Now there's a journal, what I thought of it when I had a rough draft and was polishing it, what I thought of all novels in terms of, an art form that one could work with to express oneself, and novels I might wish to write in the future. So those are free for access at johnpassfield.ca. Lastly, I'll just say thank you for watching this video.